What's up, everyone? This is the Two Off the Tee Golf Gambling and DFS show on Fantasy Six Packs YouTube channel. I am your host, Keith Flemming. Normally, I am introducing my co-host, my buddy, the gambling guru, Alan, aka at Actively Lazy 85 on Twitter. But hopefully he is not being canceled right now as we speak, as he is doing a stand-up gig. For those that don't know, Alan does stand-up comedy, and it is actually, he was really nervous, a set where he has to be PG related, no swearing and stuff. So let's hope Alan doesn't get canceled tonight. But I am very excited to have in my man Scott Porter on Instagram. You can follow Scott at Scott Porter Golf. He is an assistant golf pro at Noonan Country Club, a really good stick, somebody who is very passionate and knowledgeable about the game. Scott, really appreciate you coming on. How you doing, buddy?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely pleasure to be here. I'm doing well, doing a lot of teaching these days, which is nice. Just moving into that career, that aspect of my job, and it allows me to watch more golf. So I'm a little bit more knowledgeable.
That's all. That is definitely always a good thing. We are here today to preview the Valspar Championship at Innsbruck Copperhead Course. Before we get into all that, I want to remind everyone that you can become an all-access member of Fantasy Six Pack by going to fantasysixpack.net/plans. You'll get access to all of their experts on their Discord, access to award-winning rankings, tools, and more. It is a great opportunity for you to get the leg up, whether it be in your fantasy leagues, whether you gamble, whatever that may be, DFS. You can join today by using the promo code F6PMLB for an additional 15% off. And before we get into the Valspar, Scott, we got to talk about, man, do Scotty Scheffler and Jon Rahm have a grasp on the PGA Tour? Scheffler with another win, his second of the calendar year. There has been 10 events in 2023. Jon Rahm and Scotty Scheffler have now won 5 of them. It's their tour, right?
I mean, pretty much at this point. He just did what he does. I mean, he's one of those guys that he's never going to be too cocky. He's never going to be outside of himself. That's what I think America loves about him so much. You saw that on Full Swing on Netflix. But he just does what he does. He plays smart golf. He leaves himself on the right side of the hole. If he happens to hit a miss and miss a green, he leaves himself with a great opportunity to get up and down. And I'm pretty positive he's got to be leading in chip-ins, or at least close to the top of the board on chip-ins for the year, because I know him and his caddy, Ted Scott, have that running bet of how many. The PGA Tour Twitter just put out a thing about how many he's already made this year, which I think is 8. I think it's what they got to. But he just does what he does. He plays smart. And the biggest stat that I took away from the players this weekend was that Scotty Scheffler played 72 holes, 8 9-hole rounds, and not a single one of the 9 holes was over par. In that wind, on that course and that wind,
trouble looking everywhere. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
The chip-in thing reminds me a lot of Tiger, because it always seems to be in the biggest moment. Mm-hmm. A big example was, obviously the Augusta chip-in on 3 with him and Cam, which completely swung a Sunday that looked like it was getting away from him early in the round.
He was nervous for sure.
And even this week on 8, the lead had, got a lot less than it was early, in the day. And it was just a huge swing, especially when his playing partner ended up making bogey. The other thing I just was really impressed with was, he was pounding driver, and the guys on the telecast were questioning, the decision. But I love that he's showing the confidence that when I have a lead, I'm not just going to sit on it. I think I have a chance to kind of wrap this thing up early, because he knows, to your point, again, if he's, had 8 9 holes and never was over par, that if I get a 3-4 shot lead, it's pretty much donezo. And I like that aggressiveness early in the round.
Definitely. And then the other thing you talked about the chip in on 8 is exactly what you're saying. He kept his foot on the gas. He birdied the next 4 holes after that. 5 straight in the middle of the round when he went from up 2 to up 4 after the chip in. And then he just blitzed all out gas. I love it. I love it. He's playing with so much confidence. And he just stays true to who he is and what he does. That's hit driver a long way. That's hit it straight. Have you seen those videos where he just calls out his distances?
Yes, it's phenomenal.
No one else in the world can do that right now. Like he can.
And for those who haven't seen it, he's got a TrackMan with him, and he'll take a club, say, a number of how far he thinks he's going to hit his 5-iron, his 3-wood, his driver. I think he gets like 5 out of 7 exactly right. Mm-hmm. And what's crazy is he's upset if it's not 0.0. There's a couple that say he says 182 for his 7-iron, and it's 182.3, and you can tell legit disappointed that it wasn't 182.0. Just ridiculous. Again, we got the Valspar coming up. I can't wait, though. Augusta is right around the corner. Scheffler will be the defending champ. Obviously, John Rahm, who I think he's going to end up winning multiple green jackets. His game sets up so well for it. I love that they're both in just top-of-the-line form, coming into that event. And it's going to be a true showdown. I hope we get a deal where they're both in contention on Sunday with obviously a lot of the other young players on the PGA Tour, maybe even Tiger. There's only 2 PGA Tour events, regular stroke play events, before the Masters, because next week we're going to have the Dell Match Play taking place in Texas. And I think that explains why the field is still fairly strong this week, despite it being only the second non-elevated event in the last 6 weeks. Again, we've talked about this, but the elevated events, every one of the top players in the world would have to be there. The purses are outrageous. It was $25 million last week at Sawgrass. It's $20 million for any elevated event. And what we've seen, the one downside to it, and we saw it at the Honda this year, is typically that means in these non-elevated events, especially when they're surrounded by elevated events, a lot of the big guys are like, I'm taking a week off. Right. But we still have a decent field. The Valspar is an event where the winning score has only reached double digits twice in the last decade. Very difficult track. Sam Burns enters this field as the 2-time reigning champ of the event. Last year, he was the second player in recent memory. Hello, Paul Casey, who has won back-to-back tournaments. He is going for rarefied air and winning this event 3 years in a row. But let's get over a little review of the course, and obviously we'll get into our picks like we always do. Innsbruck is a true shot maker's course. This is not technically, or I shouldn't say not technically, it's not a Donald Ross course, but it sure does look and play like one. Features tree-lined fairways. It makes it very difficult to drive the ball. Even if players are taking less than driver off the tee, you're going to see a lot of missed fairways this week. Something noticeable that I did notice is apparently they weren't happy about Sam Burns being 17 under the last 2 years. They have grown the rough out. It is normally 3 inches. It's going to be closer to 4 this year, so they're going to penalize people more for missing the fairways. Players need to work the ball both ways off the tee here, and you will see an abundance of shots into the green from 175-plus yards. It is a par 71 course, but an unusual one because you have 4 par 5s. And again, this is a course that is difficult to go low on, so it's going to put an even greater emphasis on these guys attacking these par 5s and getting their scoring done there, especially when what makes this course unique is it has 5 par 3s. I would not describe any of them as easy, but where they are kind of a difference maker is you don't want to lose ground to the field by dropping shots on these 5 par 3s. In the past, honestly, this course has just straight out mitigated any advantage off the tee. You're going to see guys consistently hitting from similar areas, whether you're a long knocker hitting driver, hitting a layup club, or you're a short knocker hitting driver. You're going to have guys hitting to spots that's going to put a really big emphasis, and we'll get into that with the key stats in a second, on approach and scrambling. And then Copperhead has Bermuda greens. From all indications, from what players have said now for years, they are some of the truest on the PGA Tour, and it gives a opportunity for Bermuda green specialists. And for people that don't know what that means, that is guys, and with sites like Fantasy National, they track all kinds of data and stats. On Bermuda greens, certain guys putt much better than others. You can really make up some advantage for there. Last year, Sam Burns on his road to victory gained over 5 strokes on the field on the greens. And in his 4 trips to this event, averaging 7.6 strokes gained on the greens per year. Just outrageous. 2 double-digit numbers. So, spoiler warning, he's one of my picks to win. He's in my DK lineup. Sometimes you just really like a golf course, and man, can this dude roll it. He can roll it overall, but man, can he roll it here. Course comps, and if you can think of any other, Scott, let me know. Last week, TPC Sawgrass. I actually think that's a fairly similar one, because again, Sawgrass is another course that you really can't overpower. You got a lot of players hitting the same areas. There's trouble lurking. You want to avoid bogeys. Harbor Town, kind of the same thought process. TPC Riverland Highlands, and then Colonial was the only other one that I can kind of think of. Do you have any other courses that you kind of think of or you look at when trying to cap this event?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. You're looking at courses that, like you said, they're what I would call shot planning type of courses, where you cannot just try to hit it as far as you can, like a lot of these guys try to do pretty much week to week. I look at a course, a little bit like Southern Hills last year, where the fairways were kind of weird. You had to hit it through, to certain places and to certain spots. Riviera kind of comes to mind a little bit too, where there are some gettable holes, but then there's some holes where you have to just play back. You just can't. It's not worth it going for it. And then honestly, as we lead into it, Augusta can play that way.
Yeah.
Certain years when the wind's up and when you have to know where you're going to play it. And I mean, Tiger's been playing that course the same exact way, with the exception of big misses that he had to play away from it. He's been playing that course the same exact way since 97. So I definitely think this is a course where, like you said, historical success matters here. Because if you like this golf course, then you really like this golf course. But on the flip side, if you don't like this golf course, you really don't.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys with just miscut after miscut. And again, me and Alan have talked about this a lot because we've had some tough tracks, Bay Hill, the players, etc. That I really look for grinders, on these courses. And for people that are worried that's some dating app or something, it is not. Grinders, when we were talking about golf, or players that they got that dog in them. They fight for every single shot. These guys make a lot of money. And unfortunately, there's some pros that if they're near the cut line on, Friday, they're kind of okay missing the cut, and I'm going to go ahead and, have a long weekend, to where there's other guys that they're so competitive and they're so into the game, and just, they have that competitive nature that even making the cut on the number is a big deal for them. And this is the kind of track, because the scores don't get really low, you're not really out of it, even if you make the cut, on or near the number.
Right.
Some key stats, and then I'm going to go over some trends, and then we'll get into the picks. For me, again, I mentioned it. Strokes gained approach is huge. Strokes gained putting, Bermuda greens, obviously. Good drives gained. Strokes gained off the tee. Strokes gained around the green, scrambling, which is very important here. Proximity, 175 plus yards. So you want to look at shots. Who are the best players on tour from 175 yards and further? And then with 5 par 3s and 4 par 5s, par 3 and par 5 scoring. Is there any stats other than those that you kind of were looking at when, putting out your card?
No, that you pretty much hammered it. The biggest two that I looked at were strokes gained approach, and then obviously strokes gained Bermuda greens, strokes gained putting in general, but definitely Bermuda greens and knowing how to put on those. As me and you both know, we both much prefer bent grass
I
greens
can't
to Bermuda.
Bermuda greens.
Unfortunately, I have to play them every day, so I'm getting better at them. But I mean, it's certainly a more challenge. Just so our viewers kind of understand, because a lot of my expertise is in the technical side of golf. When you have certain types of grass, you only have one reed, such as Key's home course bent, where he may or may not hold a course record or two. But then on Bermuda greens, you have two reads. You have to read the grain and you have to read the slope. Grain is the way in the direction in which the grass grows. So it's a lot more complicated. You'll see a lot of guys taking double, triple looks over the putts this week compared to when they play a Poana or a bent grass type green.
And it's so different in the afternoon than the morning because, to Scott's point, as the grass grows, which in warm weather in a place like Florida, the grain will continue to grow as the day goes on. And a putt that maybe, if the grain, say, is going right, it might only break an inch early in the morning and break 2.5 in the afternoon. And the guys have admitted that they watch on TV, obviously, with all the coverage and stuff, to kind of see how the course is playing, and that can be confusing for them.
You'll see a lot of this week.
Yes, you will, for sure.
Why didn't that do what I know it's supposed to do?
I will say, though, again, this is a course like Tiger had an unbelievable putting week here when he finished runner-up the second time that Paul Casey won this event. I think that was like 2018 or 19. Guys can really roll the rock here because these greens are so true. All right, trends. And I have to shout out Ron Kloss on Twitter. He's at PJ Splits 101. I absolutely love this that he puts together each week. I usually include it in the article that I do on fantasy6pack.net for my DFS plays. And I always, mention this at least on this show. But this week he saw 7 trends that have been consistent. And it's usually at least 10 to 15 years. 15 of the last 15 winners had at least one previous top 10 finish that season, so at least somewhat of good form because, again, we're early in the year. 13 of the last 15 winners had played in at least 2 previous Valspar Championships, so, pretty unlikely you get a first-time player here picking up the win. 10 of the last 12 winners finished 45th or better in their last start before the Valspar Championship, which I wish I'd have paid a little bit more attention to that because there was a few guys that I know did not play well last week at the Players. But I think that course is an outlier. 11 of the last 15 winners had at least one previous career win. 12 of the last 12 winners ranked in the top 55 on PGA Tour in bogey avoidance in the year leading up to their win. And that's probably the one stat that I did not include that is important is bogey avoidance. Alan always talks about that if it's a even remotely difficult course, you should always look about bogey avoidance because that's the only other way to kind of prevent yourself from blowing up if you're not making a bunch of birdies on a really difficult course. 9 of the last 12 winners ranked in the top 40 on the PGA Tour in strokes gained approach in the year leading up to the win. And then 11 of the last 15 winners ranked in the top 45 on the PGA Tour in par 5 scoring leading into their win. So, having said that, there are 4 players that fit all 7 of those trends. This is not a surprising list. Argue maybe it's 4 best golfers here this week. Sam Burns, who's won here twice. Jordan Spieth, who actually has not had any success here. Adam Hadwin and Justin Rose. And then there's also 4 players who fit 6 of the 7 trends. This is a little bit more interesting to me. It's JT, Tommy Fleetwood, Brian Harmon, and Mark Hubbard. Mark Hubbard, you do not expect to see on that list.
See Hubbard there.
Brian Harmon's actually a little surprising too. Before we get into the bets to gamble, or gambling picks this week, I do want to briefly go over my DFS lineup. I'm not going to go into any detail because you should go to fantasy6pack.net. Check out my article. It is up. Each week I give a DFS lineup for DraftKings, as well as an additional 4 picks. So basically you get 10 total picks. Last week was a mixed bag for me. Unfortunately, I had 6 of the 10 golfers make the cut. I say unfortunately because the week before I had all 10. We like those weeks better than 6 of 10. But I did have 4 guys in the top 19, 5 in the top 35. So at least the guys who did make the cut did pretty well for you. So hopefully if you read that, you use those picks that did do well and not the 4 guys who missed the pick or the cut. But I've got Sam Burns. He's in the official lineup, 10,200. Another option in that price range I gave was Jordan Spieth at 10,600. Danny McCarthy again is in the lineup at 9,300. Another option in that price range is Davis Riley at 9,000. Justin Sue, 8,900, is in the lineup playing very well. I think he's turned a corner in his second year on the PGA Tour. Also in the lineup is Jonathan Vegas, 7,700, with Dylan Wu and Mark Hubbard rounding out my picks. Again, these are kind of lower price range guys that were additional to the guys in my official lineup. Were Ben Martin, 7,400, who is a guy that I always go to when it is a difficult course that does not play long. He's already had some really good starts this year, including at the Houston and at Pebble. And then my boy David Lingmerth, 7,300, another guy who plays difficult golf courses that are not super long really well. And he is the definition of a grinder, as I was talking about earlier, a gamer, somebody who will grind for every shot. All right, let's get into the picks to win. Who do you have for your lowest odd pick, Scott?
I've got JT. I've got JT at 11-1 plus 1,100. It's been weird. It's been a weird year for JT. He's made 6 of 7 cuts in not in the calendar year, but in his season. He's made 6 of 7 cuts. He has had 6 of 7 also top 25s. However, he's fading hard on Sundays. So I really think he is a ball striker. He's somebody that's always near the top in strokes gained approach. And if he can get his putter hot, and again, I think he's a little bit overplayed at 1,100, at 11-1. I honestly think he probably should be more in the 1,500 to 1,800 range. However, I think he's due. And I think the odds makers are showing that. I think that they're saying that he's due. So I do have JT.
I think he's pressing again. And that was one of the cool things about the documentary was he admitted, which is my favorite part of that series, is just how open all the guys were about the mental aspect of golf, which I've talked about for years. It's 50%, especially at that level of it, at least, because all those guys are so good. But it's what's going on in between the ears, what kind of headspace are they in. And Allen has had him as a stay away. I had him last week. He said until he sees signs of life with the putter, which that really has been the club that has let him down. But I'm with you. I was very close to including Thomas this week because I think he's by far the best player in the field. No offense to Jordan Spieth.
Or
Sam Burns. But, I mean, honestly, Burns is not accomplished nearly what JT has. And honestly, he hasn't been playing fantastic as of late either. Ironically, that is my lowest odd pick, though, is Sam Burns. I am feeling the burn this week. I just couldn't pass up a guy who is a 2-time defending champ. His recent form is not great. He's missed 2 cuts in his last 4 events, but he's still just such a phenomenal putter. He's gained at least 1 shot on the field in every tournament this year with Bermuda Greens, including gaining 3 strokes last week at TPC Sawgrass. His worst finish in this event in 4 tries is T30. Again, I have to throw this stat out because it's redonkulous. In those 4 starts, gaining 7.75 strokes on the field on the greens. That is unreal. He's basically picking up 2 shots around just on the greens. That is sick. I've seen several people making the case that is why you should stay away from him this week because he really shouldn't be winning these tournaments. If you look at the rest of his numbers and the 2 wins, they're not that great across the board. But what do we always say, Scott, right? You putt for dough, drive for show. So I got to stay with him.
To be fair, it hurt me to fade him this week as an LSU boy.
You're a big Burns fan. Yep.
I mean, I love Sam Burns. And it would not surprise me to see him in contention late on Sunday in the top 5. It just, it's one of those things where got to have some back and forth, and it wouldn't surprise me to see him there, but I just don't think he gets it done. 3 in a row is very, very tough. 3 in a row is, unless your name is Tiger Woods, who did it a few times, but there's not been very many others.
So we both went with a 25-1 guy for our next play. I went with Adam Hadwin. He finished T7 here last year. Something me and Alan both really believe in is, did they have a good finish the year before? He also has a win here, which is great, and a T12. Now, he had 2 miscuts in between that, which is a little scary, but that's kind of Hadwin's game. I mean, even in the last 4 events on tour, he has a T13 and a T10, sandwiched between a miscut and a 66th place finish. But Hadwin does a lot of things that equate to success at this course. Well, obviously, again, with his previous win. And I actually feel like with the strength of this field, 25-1 feels like pretty good odds. Mm-hmm. And if you look, his best tournaments this year, one of them being the Waste Management, they've been at tracks that he has a good track record at. He has a good track record here. So that's why I'm going with him as 25-1. It's my second pick to win. Who do you have at 25-1 this week?
Arguably one of the most visually annoying guys to watch out there, Keegan Bradley. Keegan
one of the best ball strikers in the world, though.
He's the definition of that grinder type that you were talking about. He never gives up. He's never out of a hole. He is gonna keep his head down. He's gonna do his club waggles, and he's going to ball strike you to death if it is his week. And honestly, this feels like one of those weeks where you just feel it going in that he's going to play well, and he plays hard courses very well. He's a guy that, again, it comes down to what does he do on the greens. He traditionally has been a fairly decent Bermuda greens putter. And I just fully expect him to be there. This is more of it, less about the stats, more about a feeling from watching golf, from watching his form recently. He's coming into form, and he just wins. Like, you just look up, you don't even remember. You're like, yeah, he hasn't won in a while. And then, oh, yeah, he won in 2021. Oh, wait, he had another one in 2022. Like, he just shows up every once in a while, every 3 months or so, and decides he's going to be the best ball striker on the course that week. And he's
been more consistent over the last few years, which is what I really like about his odds at 25-1 is that
for sure.
Used to, Keegan was a boom or bust guy. He'd usually either, be in contention or, miss the cut. But lately, he seems to always be kind of hanging around. And I'm with you. I love guys on tracks like this that he just needs a good putting week.
Yeah,
he win this tournament by a few shots because he's that elite of a ball striker. I apologize. I stepped on. I didn't realize you also had Adam Hadwin to win as well, right?
Yeah, but I really didn't know the breakdown of how you and Alan normally do, and do your picks. I love Adam Hadwin this week for all the reasons you mentioned. I just think this is a golf course. Like you said, he already has a win. He's got a 12th place finish. And the miscut in the 66, I think that was 2 and 3 years ago. That doesn't bother me that much because if you go back and look at his form during those years, he was going through a bit of some changes. He was going through, I believe he changed coaches in 2020 during COVID and all that. And let's be honest, we were all a little stressed out and all a little on edge during those 2 years. So I really, really like Adam Hadwin this week.
The next guy you have on your list, Denny McCarthy, 30-1. I have him at plus 350 to top 10. It's actually one of my favorite bets this week. He's had good success here, 3 for 3 and made cuts, including a top 10 a few years ago, and good form recently. But what is the main reason you're so high on him this week?
He's top 5 in strokes gained Bermuda. He putts Bermuda greens so efficiently well. And he's in form, like you just said. I mean, even the broadcasters were talking about it during the Players last week, and I think they were even talking about it on Sunday when Scotty's making his run. It was kind of like an odd place plug, but they're talking about how good a form he is and how well he's ball striking it. They talked about how well his coach was saying that he was striking the ball. And again, the biggest thing, and he was the number one guy that I looked at in my picks here on the putting side of things. He's top 5 over the last calendar year on Bermuda greens in strokes gained. So that's a big deal on this golf course.
Well, even more proof that you are my boy is if you have been listening to the show, or more importantly, reading my article on Fantasy Six Pack all season. I've been all over Ben Griffin. Just, man, the kid's a stud, absolute stud. Is on pace. If he can get a win, he's having one of the best first years on tour in recent memory. We both have him at 50-1 to win. And for me, it's just, I mean, extraordinary ball striker. And he has played so many courses now that if you had a concern of, well, he doesn't have a start here. And that's a very valid concern. We heard that, 12 out of the last 15 winners had at least one start at this venue. But I think he's kind of proven that doesn't matter with the way he's played at other difficult courses. And I like the fact with his game that the scoring is not going to be crazy low, because he does sometimes make some mistakes. He's not that high up on the bogey avoidance, but he makes a ton of birdies, and he's such a good ball striker that I absolutely think he has a chance to win this week.
He reminds me of Max Homa before Max Homa became Max Homa.
That's a great comp.
I mean, he reminds me of a guy that, one, he's gonna go out there and grind, because hell, I mean, look at his story. 14 months ago, he was he was a mortgage lender, I think, is what they said. But he's a guy that he's gonna go out there and he's gonna do what he needs to do, and he's kind of one of those guys that tends to play kind of up and down to the people he's playing with and people he's around. Specifically, like even whole fields, when you look at it that way, where I feel like he's young, and that's one thing about the bogey avoidance. He doesn't know the golf courses that well. I think he's going to continually improve on that stat over the next couple of years. To me, I don't know if is he technically considered a rookie? To me, he's been the most impressive rookie, if he is considered to be.
I think he is technically considered a rookie.
I know he had some starts,
right?
But everybody on TV loves Taylor Montgomery. Don't get me wrong; think the kid's a stud. Right. Ben Griffin to me has been more impressive.
Oh, for sure.
It just looks, to my eyesight, it looks like he's going to grow, and all he needs is a breakout week and a breakout win. And if I have to pick somebody at 50-1, and in a week like this, I think the winner could even be higher than that. We're getting into the long shots here in a minute, but that is a guy that I'm really willing to throw a unit on just to see if that does come to fruition.
And I said earlier this year, I would not be surprised if he wins an event this year. Why not this week? Before we get into the long shots, two guys that are borderline long shots I have in mind. I really like Jonathan Vegas, 75-1. Again, a lot of the stats that are key to finding success is Valspar. He fits the bill for all those. And then Joel Damon, 80-1. I know he's not in great form, but I think Damon is one of the 10 best players in this field, and you're getting him all the way down at 80-1 odds. And I mean, from a talent perspective, what they've done in their career, again, he's had 3-4 wins on tour. I just think Damon at 80-1, and Damon's another guy that he can ball strike the crap out of it. And if he can get hot with his putter, it's kind of like Keegan, but you're just getting a lot better odds with it.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, look, I'm even over here trying to look like Joel Damon, so the chubbiness going on. But I mean, America fell in love with him last month on Full Swing. We know what kind of guy he is. It comes down to being able to flip that switch, being able to turn on the mental side of the game and have a great week. And he, around the long shot odds, he's by far the most notable name, by far the most distinguished name down there. So he is absolutely a great pick.
So I apologize. I'm going to include one of your long shots actually as a regular pick, because we try to do 90-1 or higher. But Garrett Higo, which, man, again, talk about a guy that can throw some freaking darts. 75-1. Why don't you go over why you like him so much this week?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, he's a guy that he stays true to himself and he plays his game. He's not going to try to play other type of games. He's made 5 of the last 7 cuts. He has not seen Copperhead. So let's be very clear. This is his first start on this golf course. However, flashback to 2021 at Congaree at the CJ Cup, he had not seen that golf course either, and he demolished it. Okay, so this is a guy that he doesn't shy away from the moment. He is in commercials and whatnot already with only one win. He's a guy that really just does not shy away, and he leads the tour in par 5 scoring this year. That's the number one thing I'm looking at. You have to be able to take on these 4 par 5s because, like you said, there is one less birdieable hole out there with there being an extra par 3. It's something we talk about with amateurs all the way to tour pros. If you're not making your money on the par 5s, you're not making money. So that's something that you really, really, really want to look for. And I just think that he's primed to have a good week.
And again, I'm going to go over these props, but it makes me feel good that McCarthy, who you gave, I got him plus 330 to top 10. We both gave Hadwin. I got him plus 300 to top 10. Higo, I got him at plus 650 to top 10. So making me feel better about those selections. Next on the betting board for the long shots, you got Alex Smalley, 90 to 1. This is just about somebody who's a really good Bermuda player, right?
Yes, that, and you saw last week. I mean, he made the cut at the Players. He's really coming into form, and you look at his short career, but his career, he has been a very good Bermuda putter. So when I look at long shots, when I'm getting into the 90 to 100 to 125 to 1 odds, I'm gonna look for those key statistics, and that's kind of why his name is on there. But again, I really like him at plus 800 to top 10 much more than I do, obviously, at plus 9,000 to win. I think if he has a good week on the greens, he keeps his ball striking under control, that plus 800 could definitely cash.
All right. I've got at 100 to 1 David Lingmerth. For those that don't know, for over a decade, this guy just shows up, has these spurts, and I really think he could get it done this week. He's had 2 top 10s at very difficult courses in the last month, again at the Players and at the Houston Open. I just think it's good value at 100 to 1. I expect him to contend. Next, Matthew Naismith at 200 to 1. I think this is just it's shocking, honestly, for DraftKings to give these kind of odds on a guy that he's had 2 career start series finished T21 and T3rd. So much of his game is tailor-made to this course. And again, I know he's not in great, form his last, 3 events, 2 missed cuts at T39, but what did you say, at the top? This is a course that players that play it well, play it really well, and players that don't. To finish T21 in your first start here is really impressive. To follow it up the next year with a T3, I think there is extreme value at Naismith at 200 to 1. I almost included your last long shot, Kramer Hickok, at 125 to 1. Why don't you go into why you like Mr. Hickok this week, other than just his funny last name?
Yeah. I mean, he's rounding into form. He's made his last 3 cuts, and he, as well as Sam Burns putted last year, he was not number 1 in strokes gained putting on these greens. That would be all the way down at 125 to 1, Kramer Hickok. So anytime you can get that type of value on the guy that literally ate up these greens and spat them out last year, you have to at least look at that. So that's why he's my last pick.
Yeah, and he's 3 for 3 in cuts made at this track, which is always, again, a good sign to our point. And then rounding mine out, and again, this is the definition of a long shot. Stuart Sink, 300 to 1. We're still only a couple years removed from his last shocking win at a similar type venue. The harder this course plays this week, the more I like this pick. Sink is obviously most famous for ruining what would have been the greatest moment in the history of golf, when a nearly 60-year-old Tom Watson would have won the British Open. But he is somebody who just, again, definition of a grinder. He drives the ball well, and he can roll the rock. And I just, again, in a field that's kind of weak. I mean, I know I said that there's a lot of top 100, but there's not a lot of guys that have won events on the PGA Tour. And this Sink is one of those guys. I like him at those odds.
I didn't even think about it until you just said it. Okay. I did
Right.
not even think about it until you just said it. I love that pick because Stuart Sink's home track. Do you know what it is?
Mm-mm.
TPC Sugarloaf.
Is it really?
It is TPC Sugarloaf, right up the road from us where we both live.
Track. Yeah.
It is so much of a similar track. TPC Sugarloaf has an emphasis on ball placement, having the right angle in your hand, having the right angle for the club in your hand, and then putting. And Bermuda, especially putting on those Bermuda greens, they are very similar to what he puts on every day at home. So
his last 4 starts in this event: T7, miscut, T31, T27. So again, 301. I feel like you're getting some value. All right, on to the props. We'll go through my top 5 plays first. I agree again with you with the JT plus 280 top 5. Little confused because 11-1 to win. I'm kind of surprised you're getting plus 280 odds to top 5. JT needs to turn on. I know JT wants to win majors. He's got to get into form. I did not pull the trigger on him as one of my picks to win because, again, I mean, you made the point, even though he was your pick, that, it's really low odds for a guy that, I mean, at the end of the day, I always look at it, are they winning at that percentage, right? Do they win 1 out of however many events? The answer is no, even though he's not too far off of that. But I think that he has a lot of motivation. So plus 280, I like that. Sam Burns plus 450. Again, his worst finish in 4 starts here is 30th. 3 inside the top 12, the way he puts here. Davis Riley, 8-1. Riley is another guy that I was very close to picking to win here. Ton of talent. He's been playing pretty well of late. I know he missed the cut at the Players last week, but I think that's going to have a lot of people off his scent. Remember, he had a T8 and T29 before that, and he finished second here last year in his first start at this event. So if I'm bragging on Neesmith for finishing T21 in his first start here, and then he followed it up with a T3rd, I really like Davis Riley 8-1. Brandon Wu, I have him at 10-1. He finished T33 last year in his first start, and he has had back-to-back top 20s. This kid can play. I think that's an interesting play. And then rounding out, I talked about Joel Damon, who I gave him to win because it was 80-1. I don't think that is extremely likely, but I do think there's an even better chance, and I love the odds at 16-1 that he top 5s. Who do you have in your top 5 plays this week, bro?
Yeah, I mean, the only 2 that I don't have that you or that I have that you didn't include, I really, really, really like Keegan. I mean, at plus 550, like I personally, I have a feeling that he's going to be there on Sunday. So I really like that one. And then the guy that you talked about, David Lingmerth, he reminds me of a less popular Louis Oosthuizen, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And those type of guys, they hit it 260 to 285 off the tee. They don't get it into trouble. They drive the ball straight. And he's very honest with you about that. When they ask him, they're like, how do you attack golf courses? He tells you that he plays harder golf courses well, just because of the.
He's like your boy, me, man. I can't hit it anywhere, but I can hit it straight.
That's right. Exactly. So I mean, those 2 are the only 2. I'm still highlighting JT at plus 280.
I was just saying, go over the other 3 just so everybody knows, because I do want to get your official picks.
Yeah, I mean, McCarthy for sure. For some reason this didn't save. I don't have his odds right in front of me, but to top 10, he's plus 330. So around plus 650. Let me pull it back up on my phone real quick and just make sure.
It should be about 8.
What's that?
Should be around 7 or 8-1.
Yeah. So let's see here. And then my other 2 are, again, I really think Higo has a great chance. And then my last one is Hadwin.
All right. Top 10. Again, I kind of discussed these. Denny McCarthy plus 350, coming off, T13, T14 in 2 of his last 3 events. Made the cut all 3 times at this track, including already one previous top 10. Ben Griffin, who I think plus 450 is really good odds for a guy who consistently has been in contention, again, for his first full year on the PGA Tour. Vegas, who I have to win. I also have the top 10 at plus 650. Kramer Hickok, who you mentioned, plus 750. For all the reasons you're talking about. Great putter, 3 for 3 in cuts made here. He's had some success his last 3 starts on the tour, T44, T14, T29, so he's playing well. And then rounding him out, my boy Ben Martin, who, again, I'll take this dude anytime. It's a difficult golf course that doesn't play severely long. He is 2 for 2 in cuts made at this venue. Now, granted, his best finish here is on like a T40, but we saw a couple of weeks ago with his T5 finish, Ben Martin can play these hard golf courses, so I really like him at plus 850. What are your top 10 plays, bro?
So I do have McCarthy. I'm with you on that one at plus 330. I've got Hadwin at plus 300 and Higo plus 650, and then Smalley at plus 800. I've kind of gone through those, but I just have good feelings about those 4 guys. They're all capable of winning this event, and I think they'll all be in contention. We'll see how it all shakes out. I've got a couple interesting on the top 20s that I'll throw out.
All right, let's get into those. My first is Mark Hubbard at 4 to 1. We talked about it earlier with the trends. He was the shocking name on 6 of the 7 previous winter trends. I couldn't pull the trigger on him winning. I hope to God I do not regret that come Sunday, but I feel really good about getting 4 to 1 odds on that to top 20. Naismith, who I had again in my wins at 200 to 1. I'm kind of, pivoting to that, giving, 201, or excuse me, also at 4 to 1 to top 20. Great success here in his 2 starts. Again, in 2 starts here, he's almost had 2 top 20s, a T21 and T3rd. So that's kind of Harry Higgs plus 650. Harry just fits a lot of the specs here. He is good at approach. He's good around the greens. He's actually great around the greens. Good putter. He only has 1 start here, but he finished T39, so I expect him to improve on that. And in his last event, he finished T7th. So I like that a lot, plus 650. Sink, again, plus 750 to top 20. I think that's great odds. It's probably my favorite pick this week. Obviously, the 300 to 1, I don't think that's going to work out, but a reminder, T7th, miscut, T31, T27, his last 4 starts here. Again, he's missed his last 3 cuts on tour, so I know he's not in great form, but I think this is the kind of track that even at his age and, with his loss in distance, even though Sink still hits it actually really far for his age, this is the kind of course that sets up well for him. And then finally, Kyle Stanley, 14 to 1. He missed the cut last year, but before that, a T39 and T27 here. And he's actually having a good year for Kyle Stanley. Standards, he is one of those guys that plays difficult courses well. He's a ball striker. I just think that that's a good return on investment, potentially at 14 to 1. Who do you have for your top 20 plays?
Well, first of all, with Kyle Stanley, one of the biggest things there is he's a vet. Like, he's been there. Mm-hmm. He's been on the tour for a long time. He's one of those guys that you forget about, that he retains his card. You're just like, damn, I haven't heard his name in a couple of years. And then he shows up and he
keeps cashing them checks.
He keeps cashing the checks and he shows up and he makes cuts. That's how he retains his card. So, Again, he's a guy that we all have known about for a long time, but he definitely has weeks. I'm going to give you 3 crazy ones. All right. And
I love it. Let's do it.
2 of these actually battled it out in Puerto Rico 2 weeks ago, which was the or was it last week? Yeah,
it was last week. It was the alternate event.
Players, right? So the guy that won, you're actually getting better odds on. So I'm going to give you him first, which I know that's normally not what y'all do, but I'm going to give him first.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to definitely not pronounced as well.
We're country ass bumpkins, bro. You don't have to worry about it
here. Nico, your dog's name, Echevarria, he beat Akshay Bhatia. So to get a top 20 for Nico is plus 800, and he is arguably one of the hottest players on the lower level of the PGA Tour right now. He's that Stewart Sink odds at 300 to 1 to win, but plus 800, just top 20. He just won last week. I'm taking him. I'm also going to take Akshay because, one, I love Akshay's game. Callaway staffer, been following him since about 15 years old. He played extremely well last week, and he putted extremely well down in Puerto Rico. So what kind of greens? You already know. I just think this.
What are his odds? You said plus 750?
No, it's plus 450 for a top
plus
20.
450. Sorry,
so
I just didn't hear you.
Obviously, Vegas thinks he has a very good chance. Just considering the guy that beat him is plus 800 to top 20, and he's only plus 450. That's a little bit of a name brand issue where a lot more people know of Akshay and might bet on him. But I still think you're getting great value there. And then my last one is a little bit less than that, and that's Pearson Coody. Talk about a guy. Talk about a ball striker.
What a game, man!
He's at plus 400 to top 20, and he's 3 for 3 on cuts this year. So, he's
trying to play for his card too, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, and it's one of those things where we don't have a lot of data on him, but we've seen him in NCAAs. We've seen him on the Korn Ferry. We've seen him now with his provisional status on the PGA Tour. So he's not getting into the elevated events, but when he does get in, he's making those cuts. And I think
for those that don't know, guys like Coody, if you have a certain status in college, they give you a certain amount of events that basically is kind of a free trial run of not having to go through Q school, and you can go straight to the PGA Tour. But you have to play very well very soon and a limited number of starts, which obviously there's a lot of pressure on it, but we see it time and time again. These players with his pedigree, they usually end up pulling it off. So I love that play.
I mean, Akshay was this close to doing that last year. And then he, ended up not qualifying through Korn Ferry Tour and had to go back and whatnot. But again, I really think Pearson Coody is one of those guys where you're gonna, as soon as he gets full status, he's just gonna go nuts because he's playing with that pressure right now. As soon as he gets away from that, I think he's gonna do very well. So that is my last bit.
All right, that gets us to the end of the Valspar preview. Scott, before we get out of here, why don't you plug some stuff other than just your good golf game?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a number of things that we're involved with, but Scott Porter Golf, I do online instruction, online tips. You can find me on Instagram, @sportergolf on Twitter. And then one of the main things that we both have been doing for a long time that I started when I was 19 was called Club Junkies. If you like discussing golf, there's a page called Club Junkies Discussions, Marketplace, all on Facebook. Go check that out. Over 60,000 people on there. So check us out both on there. And thanks for having me on, pal. Enjoyed it.
Scott is seriously one of the best young instructors in the game. So much so that even got my old ass to take lessons from him, which if you know me and my game, I am very sensitive about changing things because I have a very unique swing, and he has overhauled my swing, and I am very close to not only getting back to the level that I was playing at before my neck surgery, but I feel like I'm better prepared to be better than ever. And I owe a lot of that to Scott. So I really do appreciate him. If you're in the Atlanta area, you should check him out and take some lessons from him. But you can check out his Instagram page and get a lot of free tips through that. Do want to plug one more time the article on fantasy6pack.net. I go into much greater detail about the layout of the course, my DFS plays for this week. And Scott, we will definitely have you back for one of the majors.
Yes, sir.
And I know Alan appreciates it. Again, hopefully he didn't get canceled in his stand-up routine tonight. And he also didn't get the hook. But for Scott Porter, Keith Flemming, this has been the 2 Off the Tee show on Fantasy Six Packs YouTube channel. We'll see you guys soon, and good luck with your plays this week.